So, good morning. Welcome to Pimento Business Development Club number. I can't remember how many this time this year, but it's set up 4 years ago to really help agencies get to grips with all aspects of new business marketing and their growth. And that's by bringing in experts to really discuss with them and share their best practice. If you don't already know me, I'm Paddy Woods. I am the founder of Pimento Fuse, and I've got the lovely Rachel on this call as well, who is one of the directors of Fuse as well. And we're a new business consultancy really designed to fuel growth for independent agencies. Now, if you haven't been on previous calls, please use chat box to ask questions as we go, because it'd be great to get you in. So today's session is really focusing on your marketing tech stack, and it's about looking at how you can build the right stack for your needs to deliver the growth that your agency needs and is looking for. We're going to be covering areas CRM, which we've talked about before, but it's more about CRM and integration with other marketing automation tools. And it's also about how we then go about implementing and sort of building out the right kit that you need. Because actually in today's market, it's really challenging, it's complex, and it is really competitive. So we are constantly fighting more and more agencies that are coming into our space. So I have a great panel with me. I have the lovely Nick Washburn, I have Phil Bacon, I have Mark Godfrey, Louise Tomlinson, and of course Rachel White, which I've just mentioned. I'm not going to spend any time doing quick bios, but actually Spencer or Laura T, can you bring them in? And I'm just going to ask them to go around and quickly do a 1 minute introduction. Louis, do you want to start? Because I see you first.
Hi, my name's Louis. Nice to see you all here today. So I work for a company called Flowbird. We're an agnostic CRM agency. So we help companies find the right CRM or fix their CRM if it isn't currently working. The main focus is that we have our consultation, so sales and marketing strategy, and then moving that into the functionality of the CRM, how it's actually going to work and how we're going to support that strategy in the functions of the CRM. So building the implementation, and then of course integrating other platforms, whether it's recommending those platforms or integrating your current tech stack. We find that these things work best when they're all talking and everyone's on the same page, every department in the company, no one's in any silos. And then we move through to sort of training and ongoing support as well. So very much as a company that's set up to help businesses grow. Yeah, that's what we're all about here at Flowbird. It's fantastic to be part of this panel. So thank you, Paddy.
Brilliant. Thank you, Louis. And it was going to be Jason, but Jason's now in Dublin with HubSpot, so he can't join us today. Mark, you're next on my view.
Morning, everybody. My name is Mark Godfrey of Lead Intuition, and we are an automation agency, very much like Flowbird, specializing in customer contact areas of the business, mostly implementing packages like Active Demand, a sales automation package. And lately, we've just taken on a new CRM package specifically targeting senior living or retirement living, as we call it here in the UK. More and more of our work now is about integrating tools with other tools. And that is more and more often bringing in AI, generative AI, to help make decisions, help automate tasks, and so on. So that's what we do, Lead Intuition.
Brilliant. Thank you. Rachel, you're next in my screen.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I'm Rachel. So I'm heading up the Pimento Fuse part of Pimento. What that means is that through my consultancy, which is Studio White, I support our agencies with services such as new business development, strategy, and really kind of helping them on their growth trajectory. In terms of my experience, I've got about 23 years experience working in marketing. I'm chartered, and so I feel like I've been there, done it, and got the t-shirt, done many CRM integrations as well, working client side and with brands as well as with agencies. So my experience spans from I have no budget, can you just get me something that does everything, right through to over a sort of 1.5 million investment at the top end of Salesforce, which is quite expensive. So and everything in between as well. So tons of experience from both being an operator and also advising agencies as well. That's me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rachel. Nick, hello. You're now next.
Thanks, Paddy. Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm Nick Washburn. I'm Commercial Director at Let's Run Marketing. So we've been in Pimento for just a couple of months now, but I've been a member for about 10 years, previous role at Force 24. So marketing automation software company. So for a long time, seen the value of the network and the contacts that I've made. What we do now at Let's Run Marketing, it's about building out demand generation funnels. So from the point of attraction, so looking to attract your audiences predominantly through the social channels, and then looking to convert that through bang on execution of marketing automation. And more, we're employing conversational AI to assist us in doing that, to improve that conversion. That's us.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nick. And Phil.
So yeah, I'm Phil. Some of you have met me. Some of you heard what I'm about to say before. I have a little agency called Marketing Managed. We rebranded last year from Bacon Marketing, and we do the potato work of marketing, which means a lot more now. We've got some new fun things coming, which no one here has seen yet. But we work predominantly with tech and engineering manufacturing companies. Turns out we also work with agencies. As when I sat down and looked at the number of people that we'd worked with, some 25% of them over the last 5 years were marketing agencies. And we go in and we look at, like I said, the potato work. So that's all around awareness and working organically. Then the other side of it is looking at people's tech stacks and making sure they're using the right things. Now, that's not just limited to CRMs and automation. It's every little nitty gritty bit of it, so that you're using the right tech stacks, you're not overspending, and you're getting the best out of them. And also turning stuff off if you don't need them. So, and also I spend a lot of time playing with tools. Tools. To make sure that we know what's good and what's not. Like we were talking about before with AI note takers, ones that fail and ones that don't.
Brilliant. Phil, thank you. Right. Just before we start, I actually wanted to do a quick poll. Spencer's going to put it up. It's just really to understand what your challenges you are finding with sort of marketing technology at the moment. Just a couple of minutes and then we'll get into the details. How's everyone getting on?
Good.
I forgot I had to do it myself. Brilliant. Share the results of the poll at the end as well.
Need some background music, Paddy. I feel like
I
we're on
know,
a game show.
you don't want me singing.
Yeah.
Because I think that'll clear the room. I'll get my daughter to actually, who's doing music GCSEs. Hi, Victoria. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Paddy. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. I'll catch up with you later.
That'd be good.
That's all good. Sorry, I just thought I hadn't seen Victoria for a while. Perfect. Spence, is that all done?
Yeah, can you see the results? No.
No. We'll find the results, and that's why I was waiting. Sorry.
Top result is getting different tools to work together. Second is don't have the resources to implement it.
Brilliant. Awesome. Well, we will actually come on to that later. So, there we go. Thank you. Brilliant. Too many tools. Data quality is a good one. And resources. Brilliant. We will share that as well in the follow-up on this. So, to get started, actually, I just want to touch on CRM very quickly. I know we've all talked about it, but I'm going to come to you, Mark, and talk about you talked about your new elderly living CRM system, but actually, what are the capabilities in a CRM system should agencies be looking for right now?
Well, I think one of the things we need to clarify straight away is what is a CRM. You go back 10 years ago, a CRM was something like a Salesforce, where it just recorded what you did with your prospects or deals. Over time, that has changed. And we used to have marketing automation platforms that just managed email marketing and forms on the website and clicks. We then have a genre called customer data platforms, which is collecting all the information of everything that comes together that you and your customer do. CRM systems today, as we call it, have really merged into all three of those things. And that classically your Salesforce, your Pipedrives, your HubSpots are pretty much capable of doing all of the things that all three packages used to do before. So it's really about deciding what you need, your particular problem to be fixed at that time. There are platforms that lend themselves better to the customer relationship side of the business. They can do marketing automation, but they ain't that good at it. You have to know where a product initiated from, where it started, to know how it works better going forward. So what are some of the things? Obviously, managing the customer relationship, and that's really like a centralized store of all of the things that you have done and the customer have done along a journey that you're taking them. Calling, on the sales side, we call it the sales journey. The customer has their own journey that they go through, but there's a funnel that we're working through. There's a process to go through, and we're automating processes. And we also really want things like analysis. What are the things that we do well? What seems to get customers from one stage of the pipeline to the next? Or if we lose them at the same stage in the pipeline, what on earth are we doing wrong that's not making them go from stage B to stage C? So there's all of those things going on. And in the background, we've got security, we've got compliance with GDPR, et cetera, et cetera. So all of those capabilities have to be part of the stack or software package that you choose to implement the relationship you're going to manage with the customers.
Great. Thank you. And Phil, in terms of just sort of, we talked about sort of the CRM, this sort of managing the customers, sort of understanding their sort of how we're managing them through that pipeline. What other systems should we be looking to bring into that sort of overarching tech package that we can sort of really start to get into the details of managing the relationships, not only in the CRM system, but also the other tools that we need to help deliver for an agency?
Well, this then depends on what CRM's got built into it. So some CRMs are pretty much full functioning, and they can do 90% of what you want anyway without any additional tools being brought in from the outside. So think about the communication channels you want to use. Think about tracking. Think about where people are going to interface with you. I had a call with somebody yesterday. They're a coach, and their primary thing is they're going to be using Facebook ads to drive traffic. And it's like, okay, right, well, what are you using for your CRM? And the classic spreadsheet. Great. Okay, well, this is a good starting point because you've got nothing. You can now actually build on this. So directing them towards the right tool to make sure that they're getting what they want. And they want to be able to do email marketing. They want to be able to capture their leads. They want to be able to do, as part of that, they want data capture. They also want data integrity. So they want everything to be verifiable. They want quality data in there. They also want to track their pipeline. So what platform is going to be right for that? So you need to map out before you go in and start going, right, well, actually, I need all these tools. It's what do I want to achieve with it? And then go to, right, well, what tools do I need? So it might be, I need email marketing. I need email outreach. Okay, which platform gives you that? Some platforms won't give you all of these tools. So you then go, right, okay, I can do email marketing here, but I can't do email outreach. So email outreach, I need to bring in this tool. And the key bit is about mapping. You don't start a project without going through it. And I'd say the same for pretty much every part of anything to do with tech and marketing. Sit down, plot it out first, and work out the desires, needs, and wants, and also capabilities within the team.
Yeah, and we'll come on to the capabilities and actually some of the other areas we talked about just now. And Rachel, there's lots of questions, so I'm going to do it's rapid fire questions rather than bringing the whole panel in. It's just very much looking at just building out through the journey, because then we'll bring in discussion later on. Rachel, and when we're going through that CRM, and I know you talked about sort of you've managed, implemented, and sort of helped clients through this process. What impact should you be looking for if you're putting a CRM system into place?
I think it goes back to making sure that you fully understand the reason why you need a CRM in the first place. So you kind of set out, what is the goal? What is it that you're looking for? And generally, you want to have better efficiencies. You want to have somewhere that's secure, that's compliant to store the data, so that, you are GDPR compliant, and, that data is protected. Bill mentioned about spreadsheets. It's kind of it makes us all kind of like wince when we hear that, but it happens. Are they password protected? It's great to have a spreadsheet, but if you've got all that personal data there that's probably being shared between emails to people, it's just not secure. So the impact is looking at why is it that you need that CRM in the first place, and what is it going to achieve for you. And visually as well, kind of when you're working with clients and you're sending emails back and forth, it's just that consistency as opposed to coming from lots of different people's emails. That improved customer service as well. So there's lots of really, really positive impacts that having a CRM system will have, and also the team as well. I personally found that even in an interview process, bringing somebody in on, CRM manager, they have a high expectation of what software that you should have in place. And if you don't, you might not even be attracting the right talent. So that's something to also consider as an impact as well, getting those right people on board.
Brilliant. And actually, just in terms of that, sort of the one of the things that sort of struck me is that I think Phil and I were on a round table probably about a month and a half ago, and majority of agencies are still on Google Sheets as that sort of, and the challenge of moving from that is quite significant because there's a fear of letting go. How do you go about sort of helping them through that process? I'm going to go Louis, because actually just there's a random question I just like throwing in.
So in terms of helping through that process of looking for what the outcomes are going to be, it all, for me, it all comes down to the planning, and then sort of really stripping things back, looking at it from a basic principles, and sort of building up from there. Often we look forward and get excited by what's possible and all of the things that we could do, and we kind of sprint towards everything all at once. But I think that when we do that, we build up too much expectation in ourselves, and then also the users of the CRM system, especially like Phil said, if you're on spreadsheets right now and we're moving across to the whole kit and caboodle CRM system, there's change that you need to manage in the organization, and it's not going to be a silver bullet. So I think it really comes down to looking at your priorities. And I know that we're going to move on to a section on automation later, so I don't want to sort of spoil any of that. But I think it's very much looking at what is going to help me the most right now, and what is going to help my team the most right now. If it's outside of that scope, and it starts to add complexity, then we're kind of doing it for the wrong reasons, I think.
Great, thank you. And actually, now we're moving on to marketing automation. So I'm going to bring back into Mark and talk about what is marketing automation, because we talked about what is CRM. Actually, what is marketing automation?
Well, marketing automation is the ability to repeat and automate a lot of the tasks you associate with marketing. So it's pushing out marketing emails, it's posting social media, it's measuring responses to social media, measuring the responses to your emails and link clicks and travel through the website. Something that marketing automation is not. And the big one here is it is not a replacement for a business strategy. The number of times that any of the guys on the team here will probably bear me out. When you ask a customer, do you have a strategy? And depending upon how long the pause is, that the longer the pause, the bigger the bullshit answer that's coming. And the answer was actually no. So, in order to implement marketing automation, you've got to have a strategy. It requires a well thought out strategy. It's just a tool at the end of the day. And as a tool, it's just one of the tools in the toolkit. It is not a cure-all for poor marketing. AI might help you make it better, but if you suck at marketing automation will possibly make that look even worse when you're hitting people with loads of spammy emails day after day.
It's so true. Sorry, go on, Karen.
And it's not something you can set and forget. Times change, methodologies change, what's acceptable as clickbait has changed. So, marketing automation, you can't just set it and leave it. And if we're using AI, or particularly generative AI in any of our marketing, AI changes. And AI does have good and bad days. If you've ever used ChatGPT or something like that, some days the answers it gives are spot on, and another days not so good. So those are the kind of things that you've got to think of. And it's about mass messaging at scale. So it's trying to provide personalized messaging at scale. So potentially you will have dynamic content, or you will have content partly generated by AI. But at the heart of it, you have to be in control. You have to set the strategy, and you have to tell it what to say, when to say. It needs a human driving it.
It's so true. I think I get a lot of poor spam emails, and I think it's when the ones that really irritate me. I was talking to Lou about it yesterday. Is "Hello, dear," and it's just, please, you're my grandmother. No. So
actually, "Hello, dear" has now become a spam filter word trap in a lot of marketing packages.
It's mad, but it's like, I don't know whoever came up with using that. But anyway, and actually that talks about lead nurturing. Nick, I'm going to bring you in and talk about that. How do we use automation really? And the stuff that you're doing is really interesting about the transforming the way we lead nurture and into that customer journey. So how can we use automation to really transform the way we generate leads?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to jump on what Mark said there, because I couldn't agree more around setting that strategy in the first instance and getting that right. And we see it all too often where businesses feel that because they've implemented a tech stack with automation and CRM, they've got a rocket ship without that clear strategy of targeting, proposition, messaging at the outset, and what we want to achieve aligned to our financial numbers. And then, again, in terms of, what Mark was talking about, what is and what isn't marketing automation, used to be really particular about this, but ultimately it's about hitting the right person with the right message at the right time through the right channel, and doing that without manual intervention. So in order to do that, we need to have data-driven triggers, and that allows us to personalize en masse. And those triggers should be based on a good set of data, which is a mix of profile of that customer prospect and then current digital behavior. So beyond opens and clicks, moving to website activity. So that's where I start to see that that's real marketing automation, where lead scoring really comes into its own. And with that ability, then you're able to auto segment, you're able to really build out good personalized communications in a cross-channel way. And what that should do, that should engage your audiences more, because they'll feel more listened to, it'll be more relevant, and we can start to move them along the funnel from top to bottom to conversion. So that's what it should do. Get the strategy right in the first instance of what we're trying to achieve.
Brilliant. And Louis, actually coming on that, sort of getting the strategy right and talking about that, actually, what are the common pitfalls you get coming through this and the implementation challenges with marketing? I think we've mentioned humans, everything like that, but it's actually that's probably the biggest challenge is humans.
It is, and I think literally what Nick and what Mark have just said couldn't be more true, and it's what I see all the time. I think what Mark said about these systems just being tools, hit the nail on the head. Excuse the pun. I mean, when I have a problem with my boiler, I get the plumber around, and he has the same tools in his toolkit that I've got in my cupboard. but I'm not, it's not the tools that I need; it's the plumber, right? And it's not starting with that sort of attitude that this is a tool. It's not a silver bullet. It needs a skilled hand to be using it in order to get the most out of it. And a lot of people, a lot of pitfalls come where I see somebody come along with the attitude that, they're going to pay a subscription fee to a marketing platform, whether it's tens of pounds or hundreds of pounds or thousands of pounds. It's not a silver bullet. And, there's a lot more that needs to be done around that. I think something that I read and I said to you yesterday, Paddy, was that you can't install culture and change. You can't just go and buy something like Pipedrive, HubSpot, Active Demand, Active Campaign, and expect that just to change the organization. And then exactly what Nick said, not starting with strategy, and sorry, Mark, you did as well, not starting with strategy is one of the biggest pitfalls. We have companies that will come to us, and I said to you yesterday, Paddy, that I've often wondered, should I have an interview process for my client beyond discovery along the lines of, are you going to work with us on your strategy? Don't just tell us to build it because we're the experts. So get involved. You wouldn't have a builder come round to your house and just say to them, my brief is I would like an extension, please, and then leave them to it and then come back. It was not what I wanted, And I think that involvement is so, so important. Another, without going on about it too much, but another thing just on that, when it comes to involvement, pick your team carefully. Don't get everybody involved, every sales advisor that you've got that's going to be using the system to take part in building it. You'll get into a situation where there's too many cooks in the room. And what tends to happen is that you'll be potentially working with an agency and you end up arguing over the name of a pipeline stage for 20 minutes and just eating into your budget and the time that you could be spent on other things. So, really find someone in the organization that's going to be in charge for you, that single point of contact between you and the agency. Or if you're doing the project on your own, someone that's in charge and someone that's going to be looking after it. I think CRM manager is a job title I said to you yesterday, Paddy, that's just appeared now, really, hasn't it? It's becoming more commonplace. And I think without a CRM manager, just appoint somebody in the organization that's really, really going to help there. And I think really, they are the biggest pitfalls, because if you start right, then, you're going to have a good journey through, but just don't expect it to change everything overnight. Give it time and then build it iteratively. Don't dive in with everything, the whole, hoe kicking a build straight away, because you're going to overwhelm your team, and it's just not going to go where it needs to go. And the last thing that I'll say on it is not putting enough emphasis on training or having the wrong attitude towards training. You cannot do training once the CRM is installed, 2 sessions or, a couple of sessions a week and then just leave it forever. CRM, especially if you buy something off the shelf like a HubSpot, a Pipedrive, they're changing all of the time. And your process is going to change and your needs will evolve as you grow your businesses. So do training alongside other things that you're doing each week. If it's just a quick refresher here and there, if you've got someone that's working really well within CRM, and if you're using it properly, you'll be able to identify that in the data and the metrics, then retrain the team consistently. So I'd say that would be my biggest advice, alongside the pitfalls that you can have.
And just throwing a sort of random question in here, which is actually with agencies, a lot of the time the founder leads that decision making and then chucks it to someone to try and get to grips with. How often does that then fall apart?
That does happen a lot, and you're absolutely right. It will, because I think that it's feeding that communication through, isn't it? Making sure that everybody understands what we're wanting to build. I think founders certainly they're often the people that might be approached first, or they found something that's interesting, they want to change the business, but then their involvement should stay through. As an agency, whenever we hand over to a new team, we make sure that handover is very warm. So we'll do a project handover meeting, we'll invite everybody into the call, and then I'll hand it up to the delivery team. Whenever it goes to a new team, then there'll be very, very warm handovers. And, if you're going to expect that from the organization, the agency you want to work with, then you should do the same as well. So get involved, even if it's just for that little handover. Don't just let it disappear into the ether and then come back and be unhappy with what's been built.
Brilliant, thank you. And Phil, just in terms of moving this forward, we've talked about strategy, we've talked about some of the challenges, but actually, what should we be measuring? What should we be sort of the automation effectiveness in terms of actually not in just how we've delivered it, but also how we're using it to make it move and moving your business forward?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Nick touched on this with the sort of like not just measuring opens and clicks, which that has a minute part in it. It's interesting to see, are people opening them? Are they clicking? Great. But does that really move the needle? Well, no. On its own, it doesn't move the needle. What are your actual business goals? If your business goals for your that you've put in place are, we want to generate 25% more business this year. Is your automation set up in such a way that it is now helping to contribute to that? If it's not, well, what is it doing? It might be that actually you're not going to see the results from it for another year after that. But it also, you need to know where people are they moving? Are people moving through the funnel? Are they increasing their scores? All of these things add up, but you really do need to sit down at the very beginning of this and go, right, what are our goals? And then you can start putting KPIs against that to go, right, this is now measurable. Is it time? What time frames are we looking at that we need to achieve these things? And then set benchmarks for, right, we want to achieve this by this. And if it's not, can we stretch it? No. If we're not going to, what's our bottom end for it so that we can go, right, well, at 80% we've achieved. Our ideal is 100%, and then our stretch is 125% on each quarter. And all of these things, you've got to sit down and plan them out. It goes back to planning at the very beginning. Planning and strategy covers all of this stuff.
Brilliant. So I did say that my daughter's just come home from her GCSE exam.
Jim might be quite useful for the measuring side of things because, well, maths.
She helps me. We're doing some garden project anyway. I'll move on. She's good at maths. So thank you and Rachel. Now, sort of talks about marketing automation, talks about CRM, but actually, sort of, how do you go about building the start of this and looking at how do we evaluate the needs and capabilities that we're really looking for to help us find the right tools, platforms that we need to make sure that we can get what we want?
Yeah, so it's that early assessment at the very start. So when that need arises, as in we can't cope on these spreadsheets anymore, it's getting too confusing, someone's just deleted the spreadsheet, we've lost all our data, whatever the drama is, it tends to happen around the spreadsheets. Or it could be that there is a system that's in place, but it's just not working. It's old. We need to move on to something new, something better, with more functionality, less integrations, a better tech stack. So it is that early assessment, and whether that's done in-house or whether an agency is brought in to do that, that is the first step. So really understanding where the business is at with their current tech stack and what it is that they need. So it's looking at that audit and then their requirements, and those requirements can be pretty hefty. And I've done this so many times, but it is very much getting it all down on paper and just write out what does everybody need it to do. And sometimes you've got different departments as well. My personal experience, I've rolled this out across a multi-site operation, across events, hospitality, so many moving parts, and you have to treat every single area as its own little mini CRM. So that's the other thing as well. It just depends on the scale of the business as to how deep and intense that criteria build is. But it's basically you're creating a list, and what you're then trying to do is match it against what the CRM functionality is. And what you'll find is, as the majority of people have said this on the panel already, not one size fits all. It really doesn't. So you've got your criteria list, but it could, the software you're looking at could be doing sort of 70 to 90% of it, 90% if you're lucky, but the majority of it is going to, it's going to do what it needs. But you're going to have a few bolt-ons here and there. But I would look in the first instance as what's the priority, what's going to get you off a spreadsheet and onto a CRM system. And as Louis mentioned earlier as well about the pitfalls, it's one of the first things that I actually flag is looking at the pitfalls of making that early assessment of, so many people can go into software thinking, oh, it's free to start. Oh, but once we're on the free plan, oh, we didn't realise that once we go over 1,000 contacts, actually we have to start paying. Oh, we didn't realise that once we have more than 5 users, that's going to considerably increase the cost. So once they've gone from this, low hundreds or free up to, we're in the thousands, that's every month. It's like, this is software, and I always then say you've got to look at that data, and if you've got data that you're migrating over, I always say don't put your dirty data in. You've got to cleanse it. You've got to get it, to the point where it's really good, rich, good quality data of the people who you want to reach out to and of those who want to hear from you. If they don't and your unsubscribes are high, that's fine. So many people panic about their unsubscribes, but it's okay. We don't want to be paying for people who don't want to hear us. We are wasting our time, our money, our resources. So yeah, that very, very early assessment is absolutely critical. And then once you've got that foundation in place, the rest can flow quite nicely as you then create that strategy.
And actually, that unsubscribes is such a core one. Automation enables you to capture, because you don't want to be emailing them again. And with spreadsheets, you might well do, because you've got probably 20 different spreadsheets with lots of different contacts, and you don't realize who said no. And so that control comes into play. Mark, do you have anything else in terms of the building blocks you need to add into your tech stack? And actually, what other elements should we be considering in that tech stack as well?
Well, looking at it now as someone that's been in this business 7 or 8 years now, I've made my mistakes. And one of the things, if I was doing this all over again, I would try and create one central point of truth for all of my customer information. We can all have our marketing automation package, maybe a MailChimp. We could maybe have a database in Notion or something like that. But you've got to pull all of this together in one central place so that you and your team have one central point of truth. And that's what I would urge people to do. If they're still at the spreadsheet level, the next step going forward is decide what you want to do and try and bring all of that information into one place. So, it's a strategy. It's a balance between the paid services, the freemium, and the free. You can do a lot of damage with a MailChimp account, a Zapier, and a Zapier account. You can get started, but pretty soon you're going to outgrow it. And as Rachel said, all of a sudden you'll come up to, it was only free for the first 100, and to migrate away from something else, as anyone in our business will tell you, it's a pain. It's a huge step to migrate from one CRM to another. Can be done, but you will ultimately pay somebody to do it for you. And to distinguish what you need as opposed to what you want. And I would say the last part is collaboration or communication within your team. We use Slack as our mission control here at Lead Intuition. If a package that we use does not connect with Slack, we dump it, or it's a go, no go. We bring everything into Slack so that everybody in the company who needs to know will have all of that information in one place. They don't need to go look at the CRM or the marketing automation platform or the Notion database to see what's going on. It all starts for me in a journey in Slack. It could be Microsoft Teams, but that's one of the goals. Don't be app switching just to find information. The information should be coming to you, not you go looking for it.
And Phil, thank you, Mark. And bring that into sort of thing. So how do you help? Because we talked about Zapier, Slack, Teams. How do you start to create that integration strategy to really make sure your systems are working together? I think Mark's touched on it, but actually, do you have anything else to bring into that?
Yeah, so again, we're going to start with planning. So you plan what you've got, what resources you need to connect up with what things. See, your website needs to be connected to your CRM. Quite straightforward. Often not, but the idea is straightforward. Whether that's for bringing data coming in from forms, or whether that's for tracking people's behaviors, building up on lead scores, on coming in through chat bots, all of those other parts. Can they come? Are they on the website, or are they already integrated into the website? Can it come through one place? Maybe, maybe not. It's like, right, okay, map each one out, which one works with, and obviously Mark's point about everything has to work with Slack. That's not always going to be the case, because some people are so well embedded in certain tools that if they're bringing in a new system to be their central source of truth, you're going to have to start looking at, okay, you're going to look at maybe Make or N8N, or Zapier to actually connect everything up and pass data through. And sometimes these things fail. So I set one up last night to take something from one place and put it into our CRM and enrich it in the process at the same time. And lo and behold, it failed. First person went through it, boom, fell over. It's like, okay, well, it happens. We'll go in. It's sat in make. I've had an alert. I know who it is because I've already got the email to say who it was. So I can manually put it in later, which is a faff. But I now know what and where it failed at as well. And you have to go back in and fix those things and keep things working.
Brilliant. And Nick, in terms of, we touched on AI, everyone sort of mentioned it. Can you sort of give how can AI really support you across pretty much all your marketing tech?
Yeah, well, that is a big
That's
question.
a huge question, isn't it? It's not just writing your content for you.
Yeah, well, no, it isn't. I mean, Mark obviously touched on that, generative AI, and I think this is becoming widely adopted now, where people are getting used to using AI for generating copy, for images. The next stage of that, within your marketing function is generated journeys. So getting those flows generated from AI. And then, of course, next stage is using it for a level of prediction around data segmentation, next best segment for next best action, these sorts of areas. The bit that really excites me, and we're starting to employ more and more with our clients, is conversational AI. So where this really comes into its own is having an AI model that allows us to have more of a two-way conversation with our prospects. With great marketing automation, it gets really personalized because you're aggregating all that data to make it super relevant. But by and large, it's a one-way communication. Conversational AI models now allow us, from the point of data capture, to start doing that qualification, start driving up engagement, sharing relevant content based on those answers, the social proof, the case studies. And then before that appointment gets booked, and that'll be with the relevant person, that might be creative director in the business or co-founder or new biz lead, a lot of those objections have already been met. So that conversation at that first meeting isn't, what is it you guys do again? I know someone booked us in for a meeting. It seemed interesting. What is it you do? It's much more, it's like they've understood the first 10 slides of your pitch deck. So they're coming to the table with, okay, well, I understand what you do. Can we talk about how this might help my business? So it's that qualification, driving up desire to the point of meeting. And that's really, really quite an important thing to be able to use.
Brilliant. It's scary. I think everyone gets sort of slightly nervous, they get sort of this, their sort of whole AI is going to transform it, but then they look at it and go, where do we start? And I think that's the hardest thing, is starting on that journey. Is there any sort of tips and thoughts about sort of how to bring that to life for them?
Well, I think that the starting points are becoming a fay with ChatGPT and getting your heads into that and using it for every element with your business around content. But I think it's just to start thinking about automating every stage of your business. Ultimately, I mean, I think this is a generational change in technology. It's so profound, probably as important as the dawn of the internet. And businesses have to be looking at utilizing the power of this starting today. And those steps should be ChatGPT, speaking to the experts, speaking to agencies like us. But again, it all starts with that strategy in mind, Paddy. We could very easily get into that grounds of, oh, okay, we've got AI sorted, we're going to have this rocket ship. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and it also goes back to, actually, humans still need to be involved, because the amount of content is just AI and not checked, and it's got Americanisms in, it's got so lots of different things. And I always use Perplexity, ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini all at once to see what comes out, and it is very interesting. If you're going on holiday, use them all to see what comes out. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah.
And so we talked about strategy. We talked about sort of tech stacks, building it, CRM, automation. Rachel, how the hardest thing is, right? We know what we've got. We know what we want. How do you go about implementing it into your agency?
Yeah. So once you've done that audit, you've done your requirements, you've built out your criteria, done all of your research, it's that you're at that point then where you do need to then go through that tender process. Now, you've got two options. You can either go through an agency who will take all of that on for you, or if you're doing it yourself, obviously it's going to create extra workload. So just be mindful of that, that if you are a bigger agency, you might want to put it out to tender. Especially if you've got customization, or if you're a brand and it needs to, it's pretty complex. If you're a smaller agency and it is just a case of sign up here, add your credit card details here, add a couple of users, then it's going to be quite simple for you. So it just depends the complexity. But if you are going through that stage of the tenders, you're going to need to see demos, you're going to need to jump on calls. You'll be allocated an account manager as well that will then kind of start walking you through that process. So whether you're working with an agency or working direct with the software provider, these are generally the steps that you'll go through, and then you'll do that full discovery. So everything you thought you needed when you present it to the agency or the software provider, then the reality is all the things that actually you've forgotten about all these other things over here. So that list might actually double, which then can start increasing costs or sort of customized functionality. So just be mindful of that as well. And you might just want to keep it quite simple in the first instance, and then kind of move through those various iterations of meeting your requirements, but at a later stage once you've got familiar with the software as well. So then once you've selected that software, it's a case of then making the decision how you pay for it as well, whether you're going to go for an annual upfront payment, whether you do quarterly, and you'll have those conversations with the provider, and then any customization. So if it's a big complex integration, you might then be referred on to some partners, so they will be the integration partners that you'll be working with. If you're not, and it's quite small and it's simple, then it could just be that you've got somebody from the software provider that's going to support you on that journey. Sometimes you might get that sort of 3-month window where they'll give you somebody as part of the package, and then that's when you decide who the users are going to be. And then you've got that early adoption where you need to make sure that you've got everybody who's going to be a user trained. Generally, you'll go through a train the trainer route as well. So that would involve having your high level people who are the daily operators, the likes of the CRM managers, insights people, anyone who's working on it, the sales people as well. So they could be the trainers, and then internally the trainers would train, and they'd train the trainer. So once you've then got everybody trained up, I would then look at what that onboarding looks like in terms of the rollout, and that can take a period of time as well to make sure that everybody is utilising the system, and that you've had all of that integration work done, and any bolt-ons with any AI or automations are either done in-house by yourself, by the provider, or whether it's an agency. It really just depend on the size of the business in terms of what support that you need. Smaller agencies probably could do it in-house themselves with a bit of software support. Agencies that might need that extra support could go to an expert agency, or you've got the partners that's the software provider might suggest.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rachel. And sort of coming near the end, so if there are any questions, do let me know. But Lou, I'm going to come to you next about resources you need. And I remember when Dentsu bought Merkle, and we all had to, they switched the whole of Dentsu into Salesforce. That's what Merkle used. But chucked it to us with no training, and we're there just putting our hair out. How do we actually do this? And so what resources do we actually need to help us get this down into the agency, working and moving it forward, so it's actually getting what we want out of it?
Yeah, it's a really important question, Paddy. I mean, and I've spoken to many friends and customers alike that have got a very big and expensive CRM, and like you've just said, it is sitting on the shelf gathering dust. It's just a really expensive ornament. Like what Rachel's saying as well, it does depend on the size of the project, your size, your ambitions, and where that is, and at risk of repeating ourselves over and over, it really does come down to the planning. I think you need to sit down and be very honest and realistic with what it is that you can achieve based on your budget and the time that you have, and really focus on the return on the investment, and before that, the potential costs of things. So if you're looking at looking at a CRM project, looking at automating, let's say, as a for instance, you're thinking, do I need to integrate my finance package with my CRM? Well, look at what it's costing you right now by not doing that. So how much time am I spending, or my team spending, copying information from CRM or from the spreadsheet into, say, Xero or our finance package? How accurate is that information? Can we rely on it, and can we report on it? And look at the friction that causes, and then work it out in hours. Look at the rate of pay that your staff are getting, and then very quickly you can work out how much that's costing your business. Weigh that against the cost of the implementation or the integration, and then work out from there, is this worthwhile? How quickly is this little fix, this surgical snip, how quickly is this going to start paying for itself? And then you're going to have your answers really as to how much resources that you should put into this, and you can. And when I'm looking at automation with anybody, it should never be automation for the sake of it. That's disruptive at best. I think very much for me, sketch a graph, 2-axis. On one have frequency, and on the other have complexity. And look at the tasks, look at the friction points in the business, and work out how often they're happening and how complex they are. And if it's not really complex, and if it's not happening really frequently, and it doesn't have to be both, then again, it's not really worth automating right now. We don't need everything automated. If we do it 20 times a day, but it takes us a second, it requires no brain power, and there's no error that can come out of doing it, it's just click, click, done, then does it really need automating? Is that going to pay back to us? I think once we've got the answers to those questions, we can look at resourcing. And I'll go back to something I said earlier. Pick your team carefully. Who are you going to bring in there? No cavemen. If no one's familiar with cavemen, it's constantly against virtually everything. They're going to add friction to the project. They're going to be sitting there, and they're going to be, holding it back. So choose your team, choose the things that you want to automate, the systems that you need to integrate, and ask yourself, do we really need this fix right now? And then look at the project over a matter of months, if not years, and how are we going to iterate that as we go through? Sometimes on these projects, we need to implement something to get the answers back first before we can decide what we need to do next as our best next action. So,
brilliant. I'm very conscious of time, so I've got one more question. I'm going to go to ask 2 more questions. I'm going to come to you, Nick, first. Is sort of measuring your success. So, what are the KPIs you should be putting in place for your MarTech investments?
Yeah, so I think this has been covered quite a few times, really. And that is about starting with the end goal in mind, and that being your growth targets. So the most important measure is revenue, and that should be a shared KPI across the business. I hate sales and marketing divisions not having a revenue target, marketing on MQLs and sales on revenue. That doesn't work. So revenue being a key thing, and then backtracking from there, or so you're going backwards from there. So that will be the value within your pipeline at each of your CRM stages, KPIs around your marketing qualified leads by lead source. These are some of the important ones to be tracking, but overall it's that impact on revenue that's key. But then we need to look at, what have we implemented those tools for? Is it demand gen? Is it retention as well? Is it operational efficiency? If so, we need to have KPIs against those divisions to make sure that the tools have done what they were brought in to do.
Brilliant. Right, I'm just going to go round the panel and just say this is the final question, sort of one big tip that you would, or 2 big tips that you'd say to start your journey. What do you need to do right now? I'm going to go, who should I go with first? Mark, I haven't heard from you for a while.
Thanks for that.
That's all right.
I would say get a clear definition of what it is you want to achieve. Is it increased sales? Is it sales online? Is it brand awareness? Have a clear goal. That's where you start, and as Nick said, you work backwards from there.
Fabulous. Thank you. Phil?
I'm going to go with something really, really simple. Just do one thing. Don't try and jam everything in there. Louis already said this, but just do one thing that actually makes a visible impact. Because if you can get that visible impact, the buy-in across the rest of the team will be significantly higher, because they go, oh, look, yeah, that did this thing last time. If we do X now, it's going to make a bigger difference as well. Great. So you'll get faster buy-in by just doing baby steps.
Thank you. Rachel?
I would look at, what's the problem? So really highlight what that problem is, and know that if it is spreadsheets, that CRM is going to be that solution. And then, a little bit like what Phil said, you'll get people on board a lot quicker, but absolutely identify what your problems are. And look out for the pitfalls. Speak to someone, get some advice, because there are so many pitfalls. It's one of the first things I say to anyone who's considering software is, let me just tell you all these things to be mindful of. And then they go, woo. So the pitfalls, just get a bit of advice.
Brilliant. Thank you. Nick?
Thanks, Paddy. I think what was really interesting in the poll was that 0 people said they want more tools in their stack, right? So it's clear that people have rushed out and bought loads of tools. So that first thing, and we've said it a few times, but is that strategy, and again, Mark said it, but being really clear, if we're talking about demand generation, really clear about our value proposition, the ideal customer profile we want to approach, how our proposition really addresses their challenges, have that really defined, and the personas we want to go to, before we start thinking about what tools we're going to use for outreach. That's the bit that needs to be in place.
Brilliant. And Louis, last but not least.
Absolutely. Very similarly to Phil's here, just start is my advice. The thing is with AI, CRM, this is technology that's it's rapidly evolving, like very, very, very quickly, like quicker than we've ever seen anything else before, especially when we're talking about AI. And if your competitors are out there using it, then we're just getting behind. There's a funny analogy I like to use, or a question, which is how fast you have to be to outrun a crocodile. The answer is quicker than the person next to you, and that's it. If you start today and your competitors don't, then you're already ahead. And even if you start messy, just start. And that would be my advice.
Fantastic. Thank you all. I think that is all we have time for. Strangely, I never had no questions. So I think you're either all fascinated or you're all at marketing. Okay. I think it's all fascinated. That's what I'm going to think. Thank you all, Nick, Rachel, Phil, Mark, and Louis. That was really enlightening, really useful session. There are going to be following up with some key takeaways from this, and there's going to be a YouTube video posted off this session later, probably tomorrow morning. If you actually want to get in touch with any of the panel to really talk about what we've covered today and unpack it, they are there to help. So please reach out to us. Do email either Rachel or myself first, and then we can make the introductions as well. And I've got finally yes, more spuds, please. Finally, I've got a couple of little bits of housekeeping from Pimento itself. So we've got our 5 p.m. club, which is online, which is tomorrow at 5 o'clock, the 5th of June. We've also got Pimento's Marketing Spice Live, which is on the 18th of June. That's focused on why PR and social must work together, and it's about building unified brand narratives. Then our next Club 30 is in London on the 25th of June. And Club 30 is for people under 30 years old. It's really about helping them connect and grow together and be the next leaders. And then we've got our 6 p.m. club on the 26th of June. That's going to be hosted by RT7 Digital in London. And finally, just so we recently announced the launch of the Festival of New Business Conference, which is on the 7th of October. It looks like there's some really interesting speakers coming down the line, which we're going to be announcing very shortly. Thank you, panelists. That was really useful. And thank you, everyone, for attending. And look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a great day.